because we are doing most hated characters, I think it'd be really funny if we started every entry with fuck and then character name. So like fuck character, or so like if I'm starting, then it's like fuck this character or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really committing to the brand, huh?
This is a rant night. We always we always like go off on episodes, but like I think like the Sarah J. Maas episode, this is a night fully committed to getting our negative emotions out. They're an important part of people's breakfast.
Here's the thing about sex in fiction. You don't need to have a fucking sex scene.
I can't stand those books. They make me so mad.
I can't replace a fire alarm on my own.
Say your morning routine.
Lemonade across my bed.
An unexpected pregnancy. Now baby just like who's your mommy?
Hello, everybody. My name is Dean, and welcome back to the InkGuild Podcast. I'm joined tonight by Alex.
Hello.
And Gabe.
Hello.
Tonight will be our least favorite characters episode. So similar to season 1 when we talked about our most favorite characters, tonight is going to be dedicated to talking about characters that we just absolutely cannot stand for more than enough reasons. It can be a little bit hard to keep up with how the criteria will be working, and just so everyone will not be confused throughout the episode, here's how we're going to be talking about our characters. So we can either be talking about characters that have really good writing and make us hate them so much for a reason. So basically characters that you love to hate. We could also be talking about characters that have terrible writing or really inconsistent writing, so they're annoying to keep up with. Or, and I guess is a the third option, we're just going to talk about characters we fucking cannot stand. So, before we get to our main picks, we'll go through some dishonorable mentions. So, first off, I'd like to say fuck Myrtle from Lilo and Stitch. Fuck Lord Farquaad from Shrek, and fuck Naoka Ueno from A Silent Voice. Fuck all three of them. So, Myrtle is just an annoying piece of shit friend in Lilo and Stitch. Lord Farquaad is a fun character, but ultimately, I still don't like him. Just as everything, he's a fun, hateable dickhead, and Naoka from A Silent Voice was the best friend of the main protagonist, who is just the biggest bitch to what's her name from, or what's the deaf girl's name? I forget, but A Silent Voice is a great movie. Naoka is fucking awful, and I hate her. But yeah, Alex, your honorable mentions, or your dishonorable mentions, please.
My dishonorable mentions are pretty wide and vague, as they are rather all-encompassing. But in particular, fuck Jace Herondale from the Mortal Instruments / Shadowhunters universe. I could say that about a lot of characters in that universe, but him in particular. And my second dishonorable mention is the entire cast of Riverdale. I will go into more detail about one of them in particular, but yeah, the characterization in that show is fucking inconsistent as hell and terrible, even when it manages to stay consistent for a few episodes. So yeah, fuck everyone in Riverdale.
I'd like to,
Cheryl.
yeah.
You can have my heart.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I interrupted you.
What? Dean?
I'm sorry. Just the last little bit. So Sharon something. Ooh, sorry, I interrupted.
Basically, fuck everyone in Riverdale except Cheryl, who has my whole heart, but everyone else can go fuck themselves.
All right. I was going to quickly say, I think it should be obvious by now, but we are going to be swearing a lot tonight. There's your thing. This is your too late of a warning. But Gabe, how about you? Dishonorable mentions.
Yeah, at the risk of being controversial, fuck Johnny Silverhand from Cyberpunk 2077. Just boring character. I didn't really give a shit about him. He's just like very like, I'm Johnny Silverhand. Smoking cigarettes. And I like to fuck women and do cocaine. It was so weird and it's so bizarre. And Keanu Reeves is really bad in it. I'm not saying Keanu Reeves is a bad actor. He's just really miscast in this role. Like it's impossible to buy Keanu Reeves as a scumbag. Anyway, fuck Abby from The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh,
I don't
fuck
have
Abby.
incredibly deep feelings on this character, but like I feel it's just they were trying so hard to like force like a sympathetic villain, but it just comes off as so incredibly forced, and I have no sympathy for the character, and I feel nothing towards the character because she doesn't really have like a character. She's just like a lot of extremely like sympathy bait right in a row, and it's just really bad. And I'll get to a more extended like expansion on this on what I'm going to talk about but right now, but like fuck the entire cast of Suicide Squad. I fucking hate like when people take great comic book characters and do quote unquote reimaginings of them as significantly worse characters for the sake of being gritty and realistic. It fucking sucks. I hate it. I'm going to get to an example I hate way more later though.
All right. So those are all of our dishonorable mentions. And I hope everyone is ready because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of fucking swearing tonight. So I'll start with the main entries. And my first entry, fuck Astrid from Skyrim. I fucking hate this character so goddamn much because of many reasons. I think, first of all, how she introduces herself is kind of cool. Like, I guess for those of you who don't know, Skyrim, Astrid is the leader of the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim. After completing a assassination for the Dark Brotherhood, but you were never formally initiated, Astrid decides to extend the invitation to you and puts you through a little test. So you have to choose between 1 and 3 people to assassinate in order to basically gain her favor. You get no kind of warning, or you get no kind of like you get no kind of like prompts or reasons to kind of kill said people. They're all each in their own way unique. Some probably have a more vicious tongue than others, but ultimately they're just 3 random people that you can get to kill, and Astrid is there watching you. That's kind of a cool introduction. It's kind of like it shows that if you were to kill anyone or all of them, it's like, you know, do what you're told, listen to what we say. But as soon as you join the guild, that is when things start to go very, very wrong. Because while I never played it, I'm familiar with how amazing the Dark Brotherhood campaign was in Oblivion. I understood a lot of the lore behind the formation of the Brotherhood, the I think 5 core tenets keeping the Brotherhood as feared and respected as it was, and I understood that. But then going into Skyrim, where it was led by a single woman who has fundamentally changed the tenets of the Brotherhood to make it basically her as the All-Mother, or like her as the central figurehead of the organization, that's just bullshit. I hate that. She has since kind of made sure that the Dark Brotherhood would function according to her ways, and it would work according to what she says, and no one would betray her, no one would backstab her, no one would defy her word, basically. And that isn't the Dark Brotherhood. The Dark Brotherhood is in service to the Night Mother, who is the central figurehead of the organization. The whole thing was made to appease the Night Mother and Sithis, not a single woman. And throughout the Dark Brotherhood story, you find out just how selfish and just how dumb she is. Like, she really only does care for herself in that I think, spoilers for the main story, she cares more for her hold of power because she sells you out to the Penitus Oculatus instead of honoring the contract immediately. And when she ultimately decides, you know what, I fucked up, I'm going to try to redeem myself in the eyes of Sithis, I still don't have any sympathy towards that, because that was her fault that we got here in the first place. You bitch, you done fucked all of this up from the beginning. This is all on you. And I know that like my thoughts are like wildly inconsistent right now, but like, yeah, when you were comparing like the Unity and I guess feared story from Oblivion, and then going into Skyrim, ultimately Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood campaign is still the better story out of that game, but only really when I think you're experiencing it for the first time. When you start understanding Astrid's reasoning and like why she did what she did, that just makes her that just makes her like a terrible leader, and a dishonest woman, a selfish person, and pretty fucking hateable. So I guess if she were to like follow along one of the main 3 criteria that I was talking about earlier, I just fucking hate her. I can't stand her. Every time I go through the Dark Brotherhood campaign, I almost always look forward to killing her, because it's like, I know what you do, you dumb bitch. So yeah, that was my first entry. I don't really have much else to say on it, because I know Alex, like I can ask follow-ups, but Alex doesn't play video games. Gabe, how long has it been since you've interacted with the Dark Brotherhood story from Skyrim?
A long time. I don't really do it on most replaythroughs, because I try to like every time I do a new Skyrim run, I try to do a bonk run. So I don't really end up doing a lot of side quests. I just try to see how long I can play the game without wearing any armor and without using any weapons.
All right. So,
I'm surprised that Astrid is your Skyrim character, because like I was confident the Skyrim community, we were united in fuck Delphine clan, but
yeah. Well, I mean, there's like, I could go on about all of the characters that I fucking hate in that game. I think Astrid is just the one that I remember the most, because Delphine in her own way is completely idiotic, and I think there's a perfect series on YouTube by the channel Avardi. I think that's how you spell it. I think that's how it goes. Like, they really break down like some of the idiots within that game. I just fucking hate Astrid because I love doing the Dark Brotherhood story a lot. I couldn't give a shit about the main story, because the main story is kind of boring, but like
I don't
the Dark
really
Brotherhood is
care
fun.
about the main story, but Delphine tries to get me to kill my boy Parthenax, and like every time if I'm playing through that game again and I get to that point, I'm like, oh no, whoops, what's this? I pressed the command key button and set Delphine to non-essential? Oh no!
No, why? I can't believe that this sword is actually going through her body. I can't. No.
Whoa!
She was supposed to live.
What a wacky time that we're going through. It is as young people in our 20s in this day and age in life.
Yeah, I probably did want to, like, I considered talking about Delphine, but like I'd said, I don't care for Skyrim's main story, and obviously I think talking about the moral implication, or I think the most obvious decision of saving Parthenax rather than killing him, everyone in Skyrim knows that. So if my comprehension doesn't make it, or thing, if my comprehension was kind of everywhere, Avardi has a great video on why Astrid sucks, on why Delphine sucks, why a bunch of other characters suck. Like, I can go on. Like, there are so many shitty characters in Skyrim. Like, Nazim is a pretty infamous one. Ulfric Stormcloak is pretty fucking terrible. Yeah, there are a lot of idiots in Skyrim. It's just Astrid is the one that I chose because I like the Dark Brotherhood campaign. It's fun to kill people, but I don't want to serve under a very selfish bitch.
Sir.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll close off there. So I'll hand it off to Alex for her first choice.
Okay. The first character that I chose to talk about is Will Herondale from the Infernal Devices, Cassandra Clare, Shadowhunters world. Can I just say, fuck this guy so much. He's one of the love interests in the Infernal Devices for the main character, and he's literally awful in every describable way. Like, he's awful to literally everyone. And I talked about him briefly in the queer baiting episode. But, like, he's literally awful to everyone except for this one character. And he's particularly awful to Tessa. I think that's her name. It's been too long since I read these books. I don't remember the characters' names anymore. But he's, like, particularly awful to her. He insults her constantly, belittles her. These books take place in, like, I don't know. They're supposed to be, like, in the past. I don't remember the exact time period.
Isn't it like Victorian England or something?
I think they take place in, like, Victorian England. There's literally a part, I think it's at the end of the first book, but don't quote me on that, where Tessa kind of, like, tells Will about her, like, affection for him or whatever, and he kind of, like, goes in as if to kiss her and then is like, how much? And basically implies that, like, she's a prostitute. And listen, I'm pro sex work, but, like, it was very clearly meant as an insult. And especially in, like, the time period that these books take place in, I just, like, the fact that he said that is kind of disgusting and awful, because he was literally, like, belittling her and, like, all that. And that pissed me off a lot. And the fact that I was supposed to believe that Tessa was still into this dude after that, like, sweetie, get some priorities and some standards, please. He's also, like, been taken in by, I think her name is Charlotte. I don't know. He was taken in by, like, these shadow hunters that run this particular institute. That's what they're called. The London Institute, I think. And he's taken in by them when he's, like, a child. And they've basically, like, raised him and protected him and taught him how to be, like, a shadow hunter and stuff. And he's literally awful to them at every turn. He insults them constantly, belittles them constantly. And now here's the thing. People don't dislike Will because he has an in-story reason for being a jackass, which is when he was a kid, he, like, released a demon, I think, accidentally. And the demon killed his sister, I think. And then was basically like, oh, anyone you love will die. Or anyone who loves you will die, is what it said. And so his like, in-universe reason for being the biggest jackass of all time is that anyone who loves him will end up dead. So he basically is awful to everyone in order to get them to hate him so that they don't die, which doesn't work for some reason, even though he's literally awful to everyone. And then at the end of, like, the series, when this information comes out, everyone's just like, oh, it's okay, Will, we love you anyway. And I'm like, I feel like it's an understandable reason for him to be awful, I guess. I don't think it excuses his behavior personally, but it does explain it. But I feel like he should have had to work for their forgiveness, because he was awful to like these people that gave up a lot for him and took him in and protected him, even though they had no reason to do it. And it just pisses me off so much that everyone just, like, kind of is like, oh, it's fine, we understand it, just kind of brushes it aside and is like, we love you now. And I just, everything about this character fucking pisses me off. And that's even without going into the queer baiting aspect of his character.
Yes, you can all go check out the queer baiting episode for that. But, like, I think to provide some commentary, oh my god, like, having characters be detestable jackasses for, like, selfish, or for selfish reasons, but for reasons like, oh, I don't want you to get close because I might hurt you or something. I don't buy it. Just go to fucking therapy.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah, like I get that that's probably like an interesting plot device to explore for characters, but like it just paints your character as a detestable dickhead from the start. It is going to be hard, like really, really, really hard to like kind of rewrite that to make that more sympathetic, because like Alex has shown, they're still pretty fucking hateable.
And like here's another thing is I feel like you could do a storyline like that well, but it'd have to be very well balanced, and that you see like this character struggling with that, where it's like he does love these people, but he's trying to protect them and keep them at a distance. And I feel like if you saw him struggling with it, especially considering he's one of the protagonists of these books, like if you saw him struggling with that aspect of himself, I feel like that could be like a really interesting plot point. But you at no point throughout the books do you see him struggling with it. He's just constantly an asshole, and then at one point he's not.
Yeah. See, okay, so to kind of talk about another character for a second, Aaron Warner from the Shatter Me series, or at least the first 3 books of Shatter Me, he in the first book is a huge dick, like the biggest fucking cock I have ever read. And throughout books 2 and 3, though, Tahara Mafi explains why and gives, I think, a more layered backstory to like to Warner's story that makes him a little bit more sympathetic. And so, you know, he opens up a little bit more to Juliet. You find out more about like his traumatic childhood upbringing and like the responsibilities that he has as son of like I want to say son of the governor, but like that's a, you know, just the son of the big bad in the series or in the first trilogy. With Aaron, like he was presented initially as a dickhead, and going into the later books where he's like, oh, he's just misunderstood. I'm getting really sick of that lately, but at least how it was written kind of made me feel for Aaron a little bit more. But from the sounds of Will, it sounds like he's just a dick. Like
He's
an irredeemable
literally-
ass.
He's literally awful. I did not enjoy him through all 3 books.
Was he like consistently a dick?
Well, okay, and then yes, but also here's the thing, because I talked about the queer baiting briefly. There's another character in the book, the other love interest, Jem, and they're like, Jem and Will are like best friends, and so Jem is like the only person that Will is ever like not an asshole to. The reason in universe is because Jem is already dying, so Will doesn't have to like push him away and fear that someone he loves will die or something, because that's already going to happen. But like he's still kind like he's nicer to Jem than he is to anyone else, but he's still kind of a dick.
Right.
And also, again, like Jem basically is, I don't even know how to say this, because a lot of things about Jem's character are like super highly problematic. But basically he's got like a I guess you could say it's like chronic illness sort of, where like he's slowly deteriorating, and will eventually die, and he does die at the end of the book, this trilogy, sort of. I'm not even going to say spoiler warning. It's not worth it. He does sort of die at the end of the books. But like, it's like he's like the only character that you actually see Will care about. Like, you're supposed to believe that he's in love with Tessa, which I still don't buy. But like, Jem is the only character that he's actually nice to. But also, it kind of reads as like, you know, being sympathetic to someone who's dying, rather than like genuine like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if I'm explaining that well. He just pisses me off. And then also the other reason that he's nice to Jem is because queer baiting. So,
Oh, isn't that great?
I fucking hate Cassandra Clare. Listen, that's my Will Herondale rant. I probably could have made it a little more succinct, but that's basically my point. Is he's awful, and his backstory does not give him an excuse for it.
Right. All right. Well, I forgot to say this earlier, but I think yeah, fuck Astrid and now fuck Will Herondale.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, your first pick, please.
Yeah, so this is a character I hate, not exactly for the character as a whole, but like what they represent in this specific iteration. Fuck Psycho Mantis in the Phantom Pain. So I'm gonna do a brief little history lesson on Metal Gear for the Gen Zers who might not be like totally familiar in the audience with Metal Gear, with the history of Metal Gear Solid.
Hold on,
Specifically,
Gabe.
Am I not coming through?
No, you're coming through just fine. I just wanted to say I'm gonna get some water, so I'll let you go on. So just in case,
okay.
like I'm not like saying anything, you're coming through just fine.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna go off for a second. Okay, so
Yeah, go on.
essentially, Psycho Mantis. The whole thing with Psycho Mantis is that he's a recurring boss fight character in the Metal Gear franchise. And every time Psycho Mantis appears in a game, he sort of fucks with the entire game as he appears. So when Psycho Mantis appeared in the first Metal Gear Solid, that's like a historic moment in video games. It's like this is a character who completely changed like what video games could do and what video games could be with like characters and like as an interactive media. So what Psycho Mantis does when he first appears and you see him, he's like this floating, creepy, telekinetic, telepathic dude, which is already very strange in this like spy espionage game. But so far you're with Metal Gear, so it's like you accept it because shit is just kind of weird in Metal Gear. But then it gets wacky. Psycho Mantis tries to tells you that he is telepathic, and he says, "You don't believe me, do you?" So, in an act that is like probably pretty mundane in video games now, but was bone chilling back in the day, he starts recounting your actions in the game prior to that moment by reading your save data and calling out the things that you've done. Like if you've been careful around traps, he's like, "Oh, you're careful around traps, aren't you?" And like if you're really careful with the stealth sections, he's like, "Oh, you're a very pragmatic and tactical soldier, aren't you, Snake?" And then he's like, "Oh, you still don't believe me, do you?" And then in an act of defiance of God, he starts calling out the names of the other video games on your fucking hard drive. And starts
Holy
like, "Oh, you like
shit.
playing Castlevania games, don't you?" Which is like nerve stabbing.
I didn't know that. Holy fuck.
Oh yeah, shit is crazy. I'm not even at the best part though. The best thing that he does though, and this is like again, this is something that's pretty normal now, or like wouldn't be like that crazy now. But so back in the PS1, the DualShock controller's rumble feature was like a totally new thing. It was like unheard of for video game controllers to do that. And so what Psycho Mantis does is he says, "You don't believe me, do you? I will now demonstrate my telepathic abilities. Place your controller on the floor," and your controller starts fucking moving, and it's terrifying.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And then in gameplay, it gets even better in gameplay because he actually reads Snake's mind in gameplay, which makes him basically impossible to fight against because he always knows like what you're going to do before you do it because he reads your control inputs before they take effect in the game.
Oh no.
So the only way to beat him is to unplug your controller and plug it into the player 2 port so that he can't read your mind anymore.
Holy shit.
And when he reappears in Metal Gear Solid 4, he's sort of like a ghost figure. He's possessing a character called Screaming Mantis. And it's more of a joke thing, but like when Screaming Mantis appears and Psycho Mantis is like takes over as like a puppeteer thing, Psycho Mantis tries to read your mind and hilariously can't read your mind because you're now playing on a PlayStation 3 instead of a PlayStation 1. So he can't read your mind anymore. And then you have this whole boss fight, which is based around your controller, your the PlayStation 3's motion controls in like really subtle ways. It's not like you have to like do like crazy jabs and stuff, but it basically like engineers the fight around like your controller's position to tell if like how into the fight you are. So it like puts the difficulty up on the fight if you're like lean back or something.
Right.
So naturally, Metal Gear Solid 5 comes out. This is now 4 console generations ahead of the PlayStation 1. There's even more gameplay stuff. There's even crazier technological innovation with the controllers. And so Psycho Mantis appears, and I got excited because I was like, oh my god, what is Psycho Mantis going to do? There is so much shit to do in this with these new systems, with all this technology. Is Psycho Mantis going to start talking to my fucking microphone? Is Psycho Mantis going to start taking effect on my social media because the PlayStation is connected to social media? Am I going to have to use the PlayStation's microphone to actually say something? Which is something that I expected, because that is actually a thing that Hideo Kojima did in a later game, PT. He has it so that you can't beat the game without speaking into the microphone.
Oh god.
So you would probably be as shocked as I was to find out that Psycho Mantis in the Vantapane does literally fucking nothing. He shows up, he's a creepy little ghost kid. He's like, ooh, I'm a ghost kid. He doesn't even say anything. None of his awesome, creepy, hilarious dialogue. There's nothing creepy. It's just he just shows up, he looks creepy, and then he's gone. And then later in the game he shows up again to be creepy and make weird gas mask noises, and then he's gone. And then at the end of the game he shows up again, he points at you, and then he's gone. It is such a fucking cock tease to have like a character who basically changed what video games could do with boss fights show up and be a wet fart of his former self. It makes me like almost forgive some of all the other ways that Vantapane kind of sucks in terms of storytelling, at least, to like have it makes like all that would have been fine to me if they had just given Psycho Mantis, like, at least he's not even a boss fight in the game. They don't even have a Psycho Mantis boss fight. He's just there to be weird and creepy. It's just pain. It's just pure pain.
Oh. I mean, given what I knew or what I know about Phantom Pain, I'm kind of not surprised, but I did know about Psycho Mantis thing. I didn't know about Psycho Mantis. I didn't even know he was featured in Phantom Pain. So I was like, when you were telling me this, I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. And then I was like, wait, why are you bringing him up? And then you say it, and I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah, it's just utterly painful. And like, oh well, I mean, when you say you're not surprised, like, I'm not surprised that you're not surprised, because that is sort of an overall problem with Phantom Pain. Like, it's really, really self-serious. And like it kind of loses a lot of that Kojima charm in how much it doesn't want to like break its own lore. Like, right. I think Konami, that was a game where that you can tell Konami like was really constricting Kojima's like creativity in it, because like there's a lot less story, there's a lot less like weird shit in it. I think Quiet is like the most bizarre thing that game does, and I'm fairly certain Kojima only got away with that because Konami likes sex appeal in their games. Mm-hmm. Like, other than that, it's like a very serious game version of like what is a awesome bizarre series.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah. Wasting a villain like that, or like wasting potential like that, I think, in general. Yeah,
I think they did it because like a lot of people were like, oh, we're gonna know Psycho Mantis' origin story, and I'm like, I don't fucking care about Psycho Mantis' origin story. He's not a character who I'm interested in because of actual lore. I like him because he's just a fucking awesome boss fight character who I'd love to see.
Mm-hmm. All right. I guess, is there anything else to add before we move into our next set of picks, Gabe? Because then when you're done, when you're done, just sign off by saying, yeah, fuck Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, fuck Phantom Pain's iteration of Psycho Mantis.
All right. So let's now move into our next set of picks. And for mine, fuck Dr. Octopus from the Spider-Man game, or from Marvel's Spider-Man 20 for PS4. Specifically not because he is a bad character, but because he is so good at being a good fucking villain. And I think like the main slow burn villain for the game. So what makes him so detestable and so hated is he was with you through this, like he was with you from the start. A lot of people are familiar with Dr. Octavius's story, and we were all kind of suspecting, oh, you know, he starts off as a very humble, a very knowledgeable mentor for Peter. And you can kind of buy that, like you understand their relationship and how much Peter looks up to Octavius. And as the game progresses and as finances are cut towards Octavius's lab, and Otto Octavius, that's the name. I've just been referring to her last name. Never mind. But yeah, as funding has been cut from Octavius's lab, and as the rivalry kind of with what was the Green Goblin's name again? I forgot.
Norman Osborn.
Yeah, so as his rivalry with Osborn was getting a little bit more in depth, and we started like really seeing Octavius break, that is when we felt so much sympathy for him, because at that point, that's when he started creating his now infamous arms that is neurologically linked to him. And we kind of knew from the beginning that it was going to go this way. But I still don't think anyone was really prepared for just how much emotional weight there would be, because this Otto Octavius, through a longer narrative, most people could relate to him. Obviously, Otto Octavius is not is not a stranger to adaptations. Like obviously he was in Spider-Man 2, and I really like Spider-Man 2's Dr. Octopus, but I think just because I was there from the very beginning with Otto Octavius in the game, when he eventually became Dr. Octopus, and I think in the final battle when he revealed that he knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man the entire time, and how deep of a secret that was for Parker, and just he knew out of nowhere, I fucking hated Octavius so much. I still had a lot of sympathy for him, and that's what makes him like maybe my only character that has such great writing that makes him one of my most hated characters. So like he's hated for a good reason, but still it doesn't change the fact that like, oh my god, he is such a good villain. Like the ones that like take your time and you kind of suspect going into it, but even then, like when eventually they've gone off the deep end, that I think was what made him a really captivating villain in my mind. Because, you know, like I had said, Peter respected him. He looked up to Peter, and a lot of us in our own ways can kind of understand that. Like a lot of us can, and you know, not to get too psychological and bring up any bad memories for people, but like a lot of us can understand looking up to a mentor figure or a parental figure almost, and wishing to be them, and suddenly when they have gone off the deep end, you just don't know what to do. Like you feel a certain kind of loss that you don't ever really recover from. And I think that's what makes Otto Octavius one of my favorite villains, I think, in video games and throughout Spider-Man. Like I finally understand why Dr. Octopus is probably one of Spider-Man's most infamous villains, because he had a connection with Peter that no other villain did, or few other villains did. So yeah. Anything to add on to that, Gabe? Because I knew you played it for a bit, right?
Yeah, that the little interactions between Peter and Otto during the final boss fight actually hurt me. Like, when he's like, God, which one is it? When he's like, you are everything I wanted to be, and I'm like, wow, I'm in pain right now. This sucks. I'm hurt. I'm actually hurt.
Yeah.
Your boy's hurting right now. Yeah, no, I Dr. Octopus is like one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and I really liked how like they made him into so much more of like a person in Peter's life, and like just really drove home how much of a personal investment Peter has with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's something I've always liked about Spider-Man as a character, how like there's always like a really solid personal investment between him and his villains like beforehand, which I'll get into what I mean. I won't get into that because that's not one of my characters, but like that is something that bothers me about like the MCU's version, where there's just no personal involvement. I don't want to talk about that too much though. Basically, yeah, the way they do Otto Octavius is masterful. Mwah, chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
But also I hate him.
Yeah. So, despite him being a great villain, despite him having amazing writing, fuck Otto Octavius from Spider-Man PS4. Alex, you're up.
Great. To be completely honest, none of my characters are characters that I hate because they have good writing and you're supposed to hate them. My characters are all characters you're supposed to like. So my second pick, I'm gonna talk about Riverdale. And like even now I'm just like struggling to figure out which character specifically I want to talk about because there's so much I could talk about for like all of them. But I have Jughead written down, so I guess let's talk about Jughead.
Oh, Cole Sprouse slander. All right.
Listen, he's a good actor, but he has not been given much to work with here.
All right. I'm going to cut that part out. I'm sorry, Cole Sprouse.
Oh my
you're
god.
My favorite. You're my favorite twin from Sweet Life. Oh, I'm sorry, Dylan.
You better hope Dylan Sprouse never listens to this. Anyway, can I continue?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes, okay. What is it about Jughead? I remember when the show first came out, Jughead was actually my favorite of the four, which is I just think his basic character trope of like somewhat broody writer really spoke to me. Another broody writer. It's just like, sometimes you have those character tropes that you're really drawn to, right?
Archetype?
And he fit into...
I think that would be an archetype.
Archetypes, that's what it is. Whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But he's like, there's certain archetypes, character archetypes that people tend to be drawn to, and like his archetype at the beginning of the show, I need to reiterate, not as it continues, is definitely an archetype that I tend to be drawn to. But inevitably, as the writing in Riverdale is not good, his character goes downhill really fast, and he just kind of ends up becoming like really pretentious and annoying. So he narrates like all the episodes because he's like writing a story about Riverdale or whatever. And he also brings us into his like everyday character speech, which I mean, you'd think that'd be like consistent writing, but also if you've ever met a writer, the way we talk in real life is not the same as the way we write, especially if we're writing like actual stories. You guys know what I mean, right?
Of course. We've heard the thing.
Yeah.
We've heard the stupid hat thing.
Well, there's that. He's also one of those characters that just like drops references to other media. He'll like mention like a movie or a TV show or like a comic book, just drop it into casual conversation to show that he's cool and literate and that kind of stuff. Which again, like kind of gets old really fast because there's always a new one. Like I mean, maybe this is just in personal experience, but people tend to have like a handful of things that they refer to constantly, generally with people that also know what they're talking about, but he's just like dropping a new thing every 2 seconds. Also, like, you know, at first he starts off as like this broody writing kid, and then he ends up being caught up in like a gang out of nowhere, like a biker gang, and he's supposed to be like this cool like biker dude all of a sudden, but also still a broody writer at the same time. And I just feel like those two things don't seem to go well together. Also, this is like kind of off track, but there's an episode in, I want to say season 3 or 4, where he literally carves the skin off of some woman's like arm to like try and get rid of her tattoo, which is just really horrifying. And I'm like, he's a protagonist. Am I supposed to be rooting for him? Like, I get she's a villain, but oh my god.
What the fuck did you just say?
He literally carves a tattoo off of a woman's arm.
No, I got that. It's still processing in my head that is an actual sentence, and I believe you 100%.
I could say anything about Riverdale and you'd believe me.
Yeah, because I swear, can you tell that I've never seen Riverdale before, and I've had only a few like sprinkles of it. Holy shit.
Yeah, and again, he's supposed to be like a protagonist of the show. You're supposed to be rooting for him, and the woman he does this to is technically like a villain who's done a lot of horrible things. But again, there you have this like 17-year-old boy carving some woman's arm up with a knife because he's part of a cool biker gang, and I'm like, am I supposed to be rooting for this guy? Am I supposed to like this character? He's literally terrible.
Oh my god.
Of course, we can mention the infamous "I'm a weirdo" scene. But I think we can really blame that more on the writing than on the character, because wow, that's bad writing. Thank you, Supernatural. And some people will get that reference, others won't. And we do need to talk about the romance. I can't not talk about his romance with Betty, because yikes. Betty's another interesting character in the show, but I'm not talking about her. I could literally talk about the bad characterizations in Riverdale for hours, but I'm going to try to wrap this up pretty soon. But yes, the romance. The Jughead the Bughead romance, as their official ship name is, as used on the television show.
Okay. All right.
It skirts the line of incest so thinly.
Right, well, thank God I'm only starting to drink my water now.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is like, again, this can all be blamed on just bad writing, essentially. But at one point, you find out that Betty's mom and Jughead's dad, at one point when they were in high school, hooked up. She got pregnant, gave up the baby. Years later, they both got married to separate people. And then their kids started dating, which I'm like is fine, okay. Maybe a little weird, but it's a small town, so stuff like that probably happens sometimes. Whatever. But then, after you find out that Betty's dad is a serial killer and he goes to jail and then dies, and then Jughead's mom, like, his parents are separated, as I don't even remember why, but anyway, they sort of get back together, and then she leaves again. But then you have Jughead's dad and Betty's mom get together again while their kids are still dating, which is just, like, really weird to me. Like, am I the only one that thinks that's, like, really weird? I'm gonna take that as a no, I'm not the only one who thinks that's really weird. Also, like, Jughead's relationship with Betty is also just really weird in general. Like, I'm like, I don't remember if they broke up or not. Because I know Veronica and Archie broke up like a bunch of times. And then at one point, Betty cheats on Jughead with Archie, and then Jughead finds out about it and is fine with it. Also, at one point, I think he finds out that Betty and Archie kissed like way before this, before the actual cheating happened. And he's like, in retribution, I have to kiss Veronica. That was also a really weird scene. I feel like we can end this here. I don't really have anything else concrete to say. Just fuck Jughead and fuck Riverdale in general. Cause like, man, it's a show. Is it a show? It's a train wreck.
All right. I can't add anything on to that. I find out new things about Riverdale every single day, and yeah, fuck Riverdale, fuck Jughead. All right, Gabe.
Okay, so this is a series that I've talked about a lot off the podcast, but never on the podcast because I never had the good enough time. And this is good enough time as any, because I fucking hate this character. Fuck Makima from Chainsaw Man. This is this is like a character who I acknowledge is well written. And like I'm gonna get my praise out of the way real quick before I get to the vitriol. Makima is probably one of the most compelling villains that I've ever seen in a series. She's like sort of a fuck you to like what I consider to be villain writing conventions, because to me a good villain is like someone who like I can sympathize with and I can see as a person, and I can like understand their morals and their motivations and like I can see them having some sort of conflict with the protagonist. Makima sort of speedruns this by just being like flat out evil, but by being the most detestable, cruel, cold-hearted, evil person that I have yet to see. This is why I decided to talk about her over Griffith, because I can't in good conscience say that Griffith is actually evil in his heart. I can say without even like a slight hesitation that Makima is like pure unhinged evil. So quick recap for like the plot of Chainsaw Man. So Chainsaw Man is about this kid named Denji, who's a amateur devil hunter for the Yakuza. And one day Denji he hunts devils with the help of his dog, who is a devil dog named Bakita. And Bakita has a chainsaw face. Bakita is a chainsaw devil. And so when the Yakuza betrays Denji, they kill Denji and Bakita. And so Bakita and Denji fuse and become Chainsaw Man. And shortly after this, Denji meets Makima, who works for the Devil Hunters Association, and Denji's immediately simps. He immediately becomes like the biggest simp on the planet for Makima, because he's like, oh my god, this pretty girl is talking to me. She has big boobs. I love her so much. I need to talk to her immediately. And she is completely aware of this. And she's like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm just going to manipulate this fucking horny simp to do whatever the goddamn hell I want, because I need shit to get done. So the whole plot, from the first little bit at least, is that Makima promises Denji that she'll have sex with him if he kills a creature called the Gun Devil. It's not directly said sex, but like it's heavily implied that she says she'll grant him one wish if he kills the Gun Devil. The Gun Devil is like a mythical being in the Chainsaw Man universe, because in Chainsaw Man, devils are like created from fear of like objects and concepts. And especially in the States, guns are like the most feared thing. So the Gun Devil is the most powerful devil, supposedly, and has caused like untold damage with its existence. So Makima wants to change the Gun Devil dead, which seems noble at first. So the whole series consists of Denji trying to like hunt down Denji and Ko trying to hunt down the Gun Devil. All the while, Denji tries to live his normal life, and Makima fucking with it on the behind the scenes, so that she can maintain him on a tight fucking leash. So in one arc, Denji starts a relationship with this girl named Reese, who Makima inevitably kills to keep like Denji away from him, and Makima just spends his entire time ruining Denji's life from behind the scenes just to keep him loyal, just to keep him simping. And it comes to a head when Makima finally fights the Gun Devil one-on-one, defeats the Gun Devil, takes Denji's best friend, causes the Gun Devil to possess his body, and then sicks it on Denji, forcing him to fight the body of one of his best friends, which is now this dangerous, horrible monster, and then she directly kills one of Denji's other best friends right in front of him, point blank, for absolutely no reason. And then right after it has this crazy monologue, which I'll read out because I can't paraphrase this in a way that will just get across how horrible it is. About so basically, in exchange for living a normal life, Paquita gave you a heart. What you made with Paquita wasn't a promise; it was a contract. I asked myself, how could I break that contract? How could I make it how can I make you so hurt that you'd no longer be capable of living a normal life? So damaged that you'd never be able to bounce back for as long as you live? Quite the challenge, isn't it? After all, you felt plenty of happiness, even living in extreme poverty with Paquita. So I decided to begin with making you a lot happier. I gave you a job and money, and fed you lots of delicious food. I provided a family that would get along with you. Aki became a good big brother to you, and Power, the bratty little sister. I'd make that level of happiness your new normal, and then destroy the whole thing. Any happiness or normality you experience from this point on, I'll be the one to create it and destroy it all. If you overcome your grief and make friends, I'll kill them immediately. If you get married and start a family, I won't allow your wife and children to live.
Damn.
It's
Fuck her.
yeah.
Fuck her.
Yeah, I haven't even read the series.
Fuck.
You're with me. Yeah. And all of this is because Chainsaw Man, the Chainsaw Devil, has a power where if the Chainsaw Devil eats another devil, then the object or concept that it is like representative ceases to exist on like all planes of reality. And like this is apparently something that people have used before because Makima makes references to stuff that doesn't exist in the universe and stuff that just like straight up doesn't exist at all. Like there's this whole scene where she goes on about how like the Nazis were a group and like the characters in this world don't know what Nazis are because the Chainsaw Devil apparently ate the Nazi devil. And then like there's like she goes on this whole thing about how there was apparently originally a sixth sense people had, but the Chainsaw Devil ate that, so it just doesn't exist anymore. And she wants to use this to like destroy like war, death and stuff and create like a perfect world. And just deep rage. I have deep hate in my heart for this character, but I love her. She's great, but I hate her so much.
Oh my god.
I just spoiled the fuck out of Chainsaw Man. I'm just hoping anyone listening like is like me and hears a bunch of characters' names, and when they go to read the series doesn't exactly remember who I was talking about, so it's not like a total spoiler because you don't have context yet. I'm just hoping that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, you'd probably want to experience it anyway, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of that spoiled for me too. So I'm like, I'm coming from this from the angle that like Chainsaw Man is not ruined by knowing this stuff, but like, oh my god, Makima is just evil.
Oh my god. Do you want to sign off the section then? Because I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, fuck Makima.
All right, fuck Makima. All right. Let's go into our last set of picks now. And for mine, or for my final pick, fuck the Calypso Twins from Borderlands 3. I could not loathe another pair of absolutely boring, shallow villains if I tried. They are so goddamn cringe that it makes me sad. It audibly makes me sad. So just to give some background into Borderlands 3, apparently after the wildly successful story that Borderlands 2 had and an amazing villain in Handsome Jack, I was really excited to go into Borderlands 3 because they had hyped up that the story was going to take a huge huge, like a huge W, right? They were going to make it like this big thing. And honestly, the red flag should have came when the Calypso twins, Troy and Tyrene, started speaking like streamers. You don't ever think it is one thing to say poggers in a Twitch stream, but saying it outside of a Twitch stream, it is a whole other level of cringe that you need to be playing with, that you need to be with other gamers to understand. Because if you say poggers to a bunch of people in your class, you look like a fucking idiot. And that's exactly what Troy and Tyrene are. They are.
Hold on. They say poggers in the game?
They don't say poggers. No.
Okay, I was like, what?
No. Okay, here's the thing though. I almost wish they kind of did, because that would make it that I wouldn't even be including them onto this list. They would be a whole other kind of shitpost. But basically, Troy and Tyrene are like these their whole market is that they're like they've united the bandit clans of Pandora and are entertainers, basically. So like they live stream their conquests to the entire solar system or the entire galaxy or fucking whatever. And because of that, it's supposed to be mocking like content creators in a way, because they're like very exuberant, they're very extra. They're like, hey guys, what's up? They don't directly say poggers, but like they might as well, given how like out of date Borderlands' humor can be sometimes. But anyway, it should have been a red flag when they were announced that they would be these like, you know, that they would be these like content creators. But when you get into the actual story, they are so goddamn boring. For villains, for like big bad villains as the main antagonists, they are so fucking awful. Like Tyrene is supposedly the big bad, and she is the one who runs the show, and Troy is the parasitic in a way brother that like kind of just leeches off the power. Tyrene is a siren, which kind of breaks canon a little bit, I think, because only 6 sirens can exist within the Borderlands, or within a certain time in the Borderlands frame, and yet now here are 2 of them. But supposedly, Tyrene has her siren abilities makes it so that she can conveniently leech off of powers, which is both kind of cool and really lazy, because you know, for storyline reasons, she uses just that. Troy sucks a hell of a lot harder, because at least with Tyrene, her having like the initial siren powers and being able to like leech off of whatever siren she wants, that's cool. But Troy is just a parasitic little fucking bitch. Like he really, like, he kind of just leeches off Tyrene and is just more annoying and more I keep saying detestable, but like I really fucking hate Troy, because he offers almost nothing, even in even in regards to the main story, when he actually gets powers and from Maya. So spoiler warning, Maya dies because Troy gets, because of Troy, like he takes her powers basically. That was a terrible build sequence. It made no sense. And Troy now suddenly having Maya's powers just makes him even more stupid and even more detestable. Because at that point it's like, all right, now you're trying to be your own badass. Cool, I guess, but I still hate you because you're still insufferable. You're still annoying. You're still addressing your audience of bandits as fucking like Gen Z Twitch watchers. I don't know what the hell to call it, but like it makes it even worse. Like it just gets worse for me, because the thing is, they're connected to one of the most influential figures supposedly within this game. They're connected to Typhon DeLeon, who is supposedly like this huge figure within Borderlands 3. and it's revealed that they're like Typhon de Leon is the parent of both Troy and Tyrene. And when you realize that, it just makes everything so much more goddamn annoying, because they had a really interesting father kid story, and they wasted it, because where there could have been a lot of really nice emotional depth and connection between Typhon and his children, almost completely squandered. It's not even expanded on, really. And Typhon Tyrene and Troy, they're kind of just like, oh, you held us back for so long, when we could have had all this power and influence. That's not a fucking story anymore. I don't like that. Like it's my one other thing is, like, I hate it when like villains are just trying to be villains for the sake of getting power. I'm like, I need more depth than that nowadays. But anyway, I think the only point of praise I'll give these two is the boss battles, but that's just more commenting on the gameplay, which Borderlands 3 is best for. Their story is so bad because they have such terrible main antagonists. Like, I hate their costume designs. I don't necessarily hate their voice actors, but like, I hate the lines that they've been given. I hate the fact that they're Twitch streamers, I hate the fact that they're streamers in general, because like, I love watching Twitch streams. I think saying poggers ironically is kind of funny, but like, I don't ever want to have that kind of energy in my fucking video games. And lastly, there was a lot of interesting potential that they could have expanded on in these games, but because they didn't, fuck the Calypso Twins. Thank you.
This is why I did not play Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
That was a really nice rant.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the one I'd been thinking about the most today. So, Alex, I'll pass it off to you now.
Great. This is the character that I found when I was scrambling trying to think of a third character that I hate. So let's talk about Glee, huh? Everyone's favorite pre-Riverdale's trashy teen TV show. The character in particular, this is another show like Riverdale where I could talk about literally pretty much any character. But I'm going to talk about Will Schuester, who is sort of the protagonist, sort of. At least of the first few seasons. He's the teacher. For those of you who know nothing about Glee, he's the teacher that brings the Glee club together. And like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure where to start with him, because there's a lot to talk about. But he is like a protagonist. You're supposed to like root for him. And yeah, again, I think a lot of the problematic parts of his character come down to just bad writing. But let's talk about that bad writing. To start off, this man has 0 adult friends, like, at all, which is kind of concerning. And it's a TV show, so you kind of get this feeling that like they wanted to keep the cast to, the important characters, which is at the school. And he's kind of friends with some of the other teachers, but like in one of the later seasons when he's getting married, instead of having like an adult friend, to be his best man, he asks one of his students, which is super questionable. Also, I want to say in literally the first episode of this TV show, he's looking to like fill out the numbers for the Glee club, because I think they need like 12 kids in it for it to be like a club and for them to like go to competitions and stuff. So he's basically like scouring around the school looking for members. He goes into like the men's locker room and overhears someone singing in there. So he spies on one of the students who's singing in the shower. And then later approaches him to try and get him to join, but it seems like he's not going to. So Will, instead of just being like, oh, this kid doesn't want to sing, whatever, I'll find someone else, he plants marijuana in this kid's locker.
Okay.
Calls him to his office to like tell him off for it and basically goes, but I won't tell anyone if you joined the Glee Club.
What?
First episode.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, off to a great start. And it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, your character needs to have flaws, but, like, falsely accusing and then, like, what is that? Like, coercion, basically, blackmailing your students into joining the Glee Club. Buddy, you need to get your priorities straight. Yeah, he does later come clean about this, like, seasons later, when the student graduates. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I planted that marijuana in your locker, and the character's just like fine with it. He's just like, oh, okay. So it's another thing.
I don't remember Glee being this dumb. What the hell?
Glee is nothing but dumb. That's all it is. It's such a bad show. It's so badly written. I could talk about so many other characters, but Will is one of those characters that constantly, like, he's one of those characters that you dislike from the start and never really like him. You feel kind of bad for him in the first season because his wife sucks, but honestly, in my opinion, his wife is just or ex-wife, I guess, is just a product of misogynistic writing. But that's a conversation for another day. But he's very manipulative to his students throughout the show. He also has like very weird relationships with his students throughout the show. Like I said, this man has no adult friends pretty much. And when he does get adult friends, the show like makes fun of him for it. He also, again, like I said, his wife in the first season is kind of terrible. And he doesn't actually cheat on her, I don't think, but gets pretty close a couple times. But I'm pretty sure he cheats on his second wife at least once. Yeah, and then like, this is just like semantic stuff, but Glee is a musical show. This guy is like white dude, like cishet white dude. TM. The amount of rapping he does in this show, cringe-worthy levels. He's also, and Glee kind of has a reputation for trying to deal with like controversial subjects, and sometimes I think it handles them decently. I don't want to say well, but sometimes it handles them decently. However, there's like one episode where Will, by the way, is like a Spanish teacher. That's what his actual job is at the school. He just runs the Glee Club on like the side. Again, white dude who probably doesn't actually speak Spanish. And there's an episode where he basically sings a bunch of like stereotypical Spanish songs like La Cucaracha and stuff. And like does that kind of stuff, and then one of the students in the show like calls him out for it and is like, no, you're being racist, these stereotypes are like horrible, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And instead of like listening to her and being like, oh, you're right, I didn't think about it before, he like kind of doubles down on it, which is not a good look.
Ew.
Really not a good look. Yeah. And again, like, yeah, again, a lot of it I think you can say comes down to the show's writing, but it's still that. And then the last thing I want to talk about with his character is, again, that comes back to like the show's gimmick and the show's writing, but the amount of like extremely sexual songs he sings with his high school students is on a whole other level. It's like disturbing. I feel like if you're going to include that kind of music in your musical show, you need everyone to be adults like all the characters to be adults. Please. I don't want to watch characters that are supposed to be like 15, 16 running around dancing to like WAP or whatever. Thank God WAP wasn't out when Glee, or thank God Glee finished before WAP came out, because you know they would have done it.
Oh God, that's sickening.
Yeah. I didn't even talk about the Blurred Lines episode.
Oh, please don't. Oh my God. That I remember Blurred Lines in general. I don't want to think about that song.
He sang it with high school students
Oh,
while they were twerking.
Glee, what the fuck?
Anyway, basically, fuck Will Schuester, fuck Glee in general. Yeah, yikes, trademarked.
Yeah, that's a yikes out of fuck for me. That doesn't make any sense. Let's not get distracted, Gabe. Please.
Yeah, okay, so I said earlier when I was talking about Suicide Squad that I hate a lot of like reinterpretations of good comic book characters. I talked enough about Marvel in the Marvel episode, and like I do like a lot of Marvel movies, but like I don't like some of the reinterpretations. But there's one character in the not Marvel movie whose reinterpretation I hate it. It actively confuses me. It actively baffles me. And that's Batman. Fuck Batman versus Superman's interpretation of Lex Luthor. This is a character where there's a lot of times when people in Hollywood will reinterpret a comic book character, and I'll be like, all right, you know what, Thor: Dark World, I don't like Malekith, but I can see what you were trying to do. I understand that, like, okay, listen, Malekith would have been a great foil for Loki, but you wanted to have a darker villain. Okay, whatever. You know what? It's fine. Malekith is not a character who I'm extremely passionate about, so whatever. I don't care. And then like other movies will be like, okay, General Zod. I want to take General Zod and turn him into like a whiny Boston guy. All right, a little weird, but you know what? I can live with it. I can live with that. Turning Lex fucking Luthor, the methodical, genius level, badass, menacing, like guy who just he's always fucking with shit, and he has no superpowers, but he's always like fucking with shit with his big old gamer brain, and turning him into this weird, stuttery, fucking like teenager who like has an issue, who's like a Reddit atheist. What the fuck?
Okay, I've never watched this movie, but he's the one that looks like Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So okay, so for anyone, I thought Batman vs Superman would be like I didn't. All right, but so basically, for anyone who's unaware of what Batman vs Superman's plot is, so this is real. Lex Luthor, instead of being so in the comics, Lex Luthor's whole thing is that he thinks Lex Luthor's kind of like an interesting villain because he's always like, he's never like really truly, he's an evil man, but he's never like really evil. He always seems to have humanity's best interests in mind. He's just like deeply misguided, and he lets his own ego and intelligence like get the best of him sometimes. So his thing is he thinks that Superman is like way too powerful and way too dangerous to be left to exist. He thinks that a man who could potentially destroy the entire world in a matter of minutes if he wanted to should not be allowed to exist. It's basically like the anti-nuclear argument. He thinks that something like that just shouldn't be allowed to exist. And in other interpretations, he thinks something like that shouldn't be allowed to exist that he can't control. So it usually goes between one of those things. Either he wants it not to exist for humanity's sake, or he wants it not to exist because he can't control it. But in this version, for some reason, it becomes this Reddit tier atheist thing where like for some reason in the DC universe movies, they've really ran home with this whole Superman is God thing for some reason. I don't know why. And like have people on Earth worship Superman as a god, strangely. Um, but they like, and I thought that was weird in Man of Steel, but it gets even weirder in this one when Lex Luthor's whole thing is that because he was abused as a kid, never elaborated on at all. He thinks that he goes on like a Neil deGrasse Tyson argument about how God cannot be both all good and all powerful. So he wants to make Superman fight Batman to prove that like if he loses to Batman, then he's not all powerful, and if he kills Batman, then he's not all good. He wants to prove his like weird atheist fedora ass arguments to the world, and he'll do it as like snivelly and rodent face like as possible. It's the strangest, most upsetting like version of a great villain that I think I have like ever seen in a comic book movie. Like I talked a lot of shit about Marvel in the Marvel episode, but I do want to make it clear I do fundamentally like Marvel more than a lot of DC movies. And like there are a lot of bad DC reinterpretations. Like I cycled through a lot of them for this episode. Like I could talk about how they turned Aquaman into like this toxic bro stereotype, or like just everything that is the DC movies version of Jared Leto's Joker. But I think the Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman takes it. Like I saw this great argument about how like they've basically just taken him and written him like a fan fiction version of the Joker, and then slapped it onto Lex Luthor for absolutely no reason whatsoever. It's the worst.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I was so confused when I think when like Lex Luthor in general like was going to be part of the movie, because like I have no like ill will against or towards Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh no,
like
the guy's a great actor.
Yeah, he's
The Social
great.
Network, amazing movie. One of my favorites of all time.
Yeah.
This ain't it.
And despite and speaking on Zack Snyder, I've always said that he can compose great shots, but I think lately it's very obvious he doesn't know how to write characters.
I'm a little bit torn. I'm torn on Zack Snyder. I feel like he has ideas, and I don't think he knows how to execute all of them. When it works, it does work, but I think like there's just something a little off. Yeah, there's something always a little off about his character writing.
Yeah,
and it really comes to a head in Lex Luthor.
Yeah, like you're right. Like Lex Luthor, who's supposed to be like this menacing forward presence, like he's got a very commanding presence, especially as one of Superman's like most notorious villains, and suddenly they've made him a geriatric idiot for fucking Batman v Superman. I don't understand. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Also, his plan in general is very strange. I can't remember a lot of it because I didn't watch this movie in preparation for this episode. But like it's one of the like weirdest, most convoluted plots to get two people to hate each other. Like he's like there's so many like weird coincidences that it's based around, and like so much shit that he couldn't have possibly predicted would happen. And like what's crazy about this is that like there's a lot of shit that happens in this movie that he couldn't have predicted, but I would have been able to believe he'd predicted it had they just done Lex Luthor as normal Lex Luthor. And the fact that he's like this idiot in the movie, it makes it impossible to believe that he's a character with a genius level intellect. Like I can't believe this guy who's like who can barely control his own emotions and is like he talks like this and Superman, I'm gonna get you, and he has like weird emo bangs. Like I'm not like, okay, here's the thing. I'm not a comic book like purist. I think if you want to change, I think if you're like, I mean, and I've said this about even my own work. Like, if someone comes to me with an adaptation script for like a book that I'm writing, and they have a bunch of changes on it, I don't care as long as those changes are good. So I don't give a shit that they gave Lex Luthor hair like that on basis doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that they gave him like this. That's so 70s fucking weird haircut. Like I it, there's I don't understand any of it. I have.
It's probably just to make him look more kooky and out there.
Yeah, they wanted to make him like this, like so relatable teenage guy. Like, one of his opening scenes is him playing basketball, and they made him into like a millennial startup, like Silicon Valley kid. Why?
Like his look is iconic enough that even I like know what he looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, I've also watched Supergirl, and he's a pretty big character in that show right now. But like,
even Supergirl does Lex Luthor better.
He's an interesting character in Supergirl. Like, I don't even think Supergirl's well written all the time.
No.
But like he's still an interesting character there.
Yeah, like, yeah, I just don't get it. And I will give it chops that like they didn't just go with the generic, because like a lot of really generic runs have Lex Luthor build like an anti-Superman suit, which is just not very interesting. Like, Lex Luthor's strength as a villain is that he has no powers and has no way to really beat Superman hand to hand, so he has to like think his way around it. But I just thought it was very poorly thought out that their solution to this was to have a plot line where Lex Luthor kidnaps Superman's mom to blackmail him into fighting Batman.
Yeah,
is that really what the plot is?
That's one thing. That was the main that was the main one. The backup was fucking Doomsday.
Yeah, that leads to the that's what leads to that infamous Save Martha sequence, because Batman, I'm going off a tangent, because Batman is about to kill Superman. He's like winning the fight, and Superman is like, "You're letting them kill Martha," and then
even I've seen this scene. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So fucking dumb. Oh my god.
That has nothing to do with Lex Luthor as a character. That's just like one of the most hilarious. It makes me laugh even more. Like, back to Lex Luthor, it makes me laugh even more that all of his crazy convoluted bullshit, all of his insane plan was solely to lead up to the Save Martha sequence. All of that shit was for this, and then oh my god, and like, there's just a lot of like Snyderisms too. Like, he has that whole sequence where he has that painting of angels flying, of like devils rising up from hell, and he's like, oh, the biggest lie they ever told you, it's that devils come from the hell below, but they come from the sky. It's like, well, wow, so deep, bro. I'm literally coming and farting and shitting that you've blown my brain with your Rick and Morty gamer brain Mountain Dew. Fuck Batman v Superman's Lex Luthor, man.
Oh my!
Can we also just say fuck Batman v Superman in general? I've heard nothing good about that movie.
No, we can do a whole off tangent about Batman v Superman after the podcast.
I would yeah, after the podcast I'd love to talk about. I have lots of thoughts about it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, unfortunately, viewing audience, that'll just be for us, but who knows, maybe we'll do a DCEU episode soon. That'll be funny. But for tonight, let's call it. So thanks everyone for tuning in. You can find all of our social media down in the description below, both individually and as the InkGuild. Credit is where credit's due. We have our music credits, our thumbnail artist Gabe, I handle the editing. Georgia has commissioned the channel art. And with I think with all that out of the way, because there was so much to talk about, or because there were so many characters to talk about, it was kind of hard, obviously, to contain it to just a few set picks. And even with dishonorable mentions, I think that was still pretty difficult. So let's spend another few minutes talking more dishonorable mentions, because as we were talking, I came up with a few. So going back to Skyrim, obviously, fuck Delphine, fuck Ulfric Stormcloak, fuck Alduin, boring ass main antagonist. Despite being a world ender, you're boring as fuck. Fuck most of the men in Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses. I can't specify which ones because most of them are pretty fucking terrible. Fuck. I forgot one. Fuck. What is it? Fuck the main antagonist of Horizon Zero Dawn 2. I forget what his name is, but like I remember when he was finally like, oh, I've been coercing with
penis fart sun man. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I've been That's not it. I don't think that's it, but I mean, I kind of get it. So when he's been like, oh, I've been coercing with Hades this whole time, it's like, you fucking idiot.
Hellas. Okay, so I was sort of on the mark of penis rhymes.
Yeah, so fuck him. I didn't like that story, and I think to end it, fuck everyone in Artemis Fowl, the movie.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, straight up.
Alex, just fire off a bunch of names that you fucking do not like.
Oh my god. I'm gonna second your all the men in Sarah J. Maas books. Fuck all of them. All of them. I'm not even going to say some of them. I'm just going to say all of them.
Even Dorian? Because Dorian's like small cinnamon roll boy. Everyone else fucking is awful. I have a soft spot for Dorian, though.
I also have a soft spot for Dorian, but that still doesn't mean that I like the way he's written.
Okay.
To be honest. I don't know. I really struggled to come up with my list because I just like... Because you keep talking about like villains that are well written that you hate, and I'm like, even when I have well written villains, I tend to just say that I like them, even if I hate the things they do. So none of those come to mind. So I don't think I have anything else to offer. Sorry.
Okay, Gabe.
I had two characters who I had to boot off my main list, so I have a lot of thoughts on them, but I'm going to try to like condense it into a dishonorable mentions. So the first character I had to boot off my list because of room was the Council from Mass Effect. It's not one character, it's a group of characters, but they're basically one character. I have never seen a group of more incompetent fucking nitwits in my entire life. Like, these idiots. Mass Effect is all about there's a giant alien invasion coming in. The Reapers are coming in. At the end of the first game, a giant Reaper attacks the Citadel and almost kills everyone, including the Council. Start of the second game, you go to the fucking Council, you ask them like what their plan is for the Reapers. The guy says, yes, Reapers, the immortal race of sentient starships allegedly waiting in dark space. We have dismissed that claim after I saved them from a giant one that was floating above them. I hate them so much. They're so stupid. Mass Effect 3 is all about a Reaper invasion coming in, and now I have to save the universe because the universe wasn't preparing, because these stupid idiots just wouldn't do shit. They wouldn't start preparations when I was fucking telling them throughout the whole first two games, Reapers are fucking coming, they're happening. But no, I hate them. Anyway, second character I was going to talk about, because I'm not sure if I hate him or not, but I do hate him, is the King of All Cosmos from Katamari Damacy. For those unaware of what the plot of Katamari Damacy is, basically, the King of All Cosmos is his namesake, and he goes on a drunk bender and destroys the entire universe, and then you have to go recreate it. And as you're going through the whole Katamari game is just a battle of attrition, listening to this idiot who ruined everything and has now got you to do his bitch work, and he's like, oh, this Katamari is pathetic. You're useless to me. You suck. I hate you. And it's just a battle of how much shit you can take from this stupid, pompous, well-endowed moron.
Oh my god.
This is
not where I was expecting that to go.
Yeah, this is fucking Jesse and James from the Romance Stories episode all over again.
You can literally bring him like an entire city's worth of mass to turn into a star, and you're like, oh, we'll make it into a constellation, but do it fresher next time. Like, fuck you, man! What do you know about me? You haven't done shit. You've just been sitting there lounging around in space like a big idiot. You don't know shit. And then he shoots fucking laser beams at you if you do badly. Fuck you! Anyway.
I also just remembered some for my honorable mentions, if I can go off again.
Yeah, go on.
Fuck Severus Snape from Harry Potter. Fuck Momo the cat from Love, Nikki. It's such a random thing. But he's basically everything Gabe just said. He basically just judges you throughout the whole game, and if it's like if you mess up your styling, he's like, you're such an idiot, like no wonder you're not a goddess, oh my god, you're so unfashionable. And then if you do something well, he's just like, wow, tits. And I'm like, why is this cat like this? You're a cat, shut up. I hate him. And then also the one, my final honorable mention is Lucian from Critical Role, who, God, he's a good villain, but I fucking hate him. Ah!
All right, I think we can call it there. I'm kind of all done with saying who I hate. So, yeah. For us three, we're going to be talking about Batman v Superman off podcast. But for everyone else, have a good night.
Bye.